spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football, the only show that gives you everything you need to know about the NFL in just 30-ish minutes a day. It's Wednesday, which means it is Power Rankings Draft Day. As always, I've got Jimmy Ray from the NFL Stats Twitter account at NFL_stats. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll notice for the first time we have a third person joining us. I'm so excited to have Tyler Dunne, founder of Go Long and author of the new book, The Blood and Guts, How Tight Ends Save Football. Ty, you were a multiple-time guest on my last podcast. I'm excited to finally get you on this one, dude. How you doing?
Brian, it is an absolute pleasure, an honor to be here with you both, Brian and Jimmy. Sorry, Jimmy. I can't.
No, Jimmy doesn't matter. It's my show. Jimmy just comes on once.
Me and Brian are old friends, so I gravitate that direction. But no, this is awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Long overdue. I'm glad we're here doing it.
Well, I've known you, I guess, now for a little over a year. Huge fan, subscriber to Go Long. Love what you do. Legit Football, we kind of do the opposite thing. We give you the little snippets, but Ty goes deep. You want the actual human sides of these stories, and that is really what Blood and Guts is all about. We will get to that at halftime, but it's Wednesday. That means we have to draft some power rankings. Ty, I gave you a quick overrun on how this is going to go. Do you feel somewhat prepared here?
I will say I'm always crapping on power rankings that go along. So, I'm like anti-power rankings and here I am, but that's just the power of legit football in 30 minutes of football, man. You can convince the most anti-power ranking person on the planet to engage in power rankings. So
that's
funny. It just says everything you need to know about this fantastic podcast.
Yeah, I said that same thing when I first started. I was like, man, at the first show, I was like, I hate doing power rankings. I don't think they really mean much, but I think they're fun. So that's what keeps me going every week.
Well, Ty, this power rankings might be suitable to someone like you who hates power rankings because it's a draft, and we have no choice but to go with whoever you draft. If you want to put the Bills at 23rd, we have to put that out on Twitter. So if you feel the need to sabotage, we can't do anything about it. That's why we do it. We thought draft style would at least mix it up a little bit. But hey, you guys are here. We'll get right into it. Anthony Wayner, our producer behind the scenes, get the timer ready because 30 minutes of football with Legit Football Power Rankings Draft for Week 8 starts now. So I am going to share my screen here. As always, we've got this really kind of wanky tier maker system that we use for the Power Rankings. Ty, you'll see all the logos at the bottom. You are the guest. We'll go Ty, and then Jimmy, and then me, and we will alternate from 32 all the way to 1. So Tyler Dunne is our guest. Who would you put dead last, number 32 in the Power Rankings ahead of Week 8?
I'm going to go with the Houston Texans.
All right, and quick, just reasoning why. I mean, I think we all agree that that's the obvious choice. That's who I had at my number 32. But why do we have the Texans as the worst team right now?
Yeah, I mean, they God, I get it. You wanted to give Davis Mills a shot, but he kind of is what everybody thought he would be all along. A lot of hype, a lot of fun in training camp. But it's just not a good roster. There's just not a lot of good players. I mean, part of it's by design. They want to start over, and I think that's probably smart. But at some point, you got to get around to drafting some quality players. And they just don't have many.
Yeah, Davis Mills actually finished last season with some promise, with some potential, flashed in some games. I think about that game against the Chargers. Do you have just a quick idea what happened? Like, where is the Davis Mills that we saw at the end of last season? Was that just he caught fire for a short period of time?
Yeah, I think any quarterback's liable to kind of like getting into a groove. I mean, everybody was ready to crown Bailey Zappi just a couple weeks ago, right?
That's true.
I mean, hey, I don't know. I'm off of the Zappi bandwagon myself. Maybe he is the second coming of Tom Brady, but I think you just see this a lot. Like there's a lot of quarterbacks that get hot for a few weeks and get everybody excited, and if you're a mid-round quarterback, chances are you're just not very good unless you're Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott. Like,
right.
There's a reason that teams are in such a rush to draft quarterbacks in the top 10, and often just they're just throwing lines in the water, just hoping and praying that they
throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Get a big get. Yeah, when really like there's just the odds of a quarterback drafted beyond the first round. Maybe we'll be on the second round. Jalen Hurts looks pretty dang good. If you're third round or lower, you're probably not going to make it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just the math of it. You go through history, there's barely anybody.
That's true. And I think you're right. I think Houston is looking at a new QB in 2023. Jimmy, let's keep it rolling. You are up next. Who do you have for number 31?
I'll go and throw this comment up there. I have the Lions at number 31. They scored 140 points in the first 4 weeks of the season. The last 2 weeks they've played, they scored 6 points total, and that was their strong suit. The first 4 weeks we were like, their defense stinks, but at least they're putting up a lot of points with Jared Goff, DeAndre Swift. Amon-Ra St. Brown was playing really well, going off of his amazing season last season. But at this point, you just got to put them this low until they show something more, and they only have one win to prove. They lost to the Cowboys 24-6. I mean, not a lot going for them right now. I know Anthony, our producers, I mean, he probably agrees with me here.
Hey, they should be glad, and Tyler in the chat, that we did not put them 32. All right,
Right.
31
yeah,
that's a blessing for the Lions. The Texans are just slightly worse. I also had them at 31. I'm in agreement there. Moving on to number 30, I'm going to go ahead and put the Carolina Panthers. I know that they just got their second victory of the season, and they're one game out of first place in the NFC South, as crazy as that is. But I think that was more a reflection of how bad Brady and the Bucs are playing right now than anything that the Panthers are suddenly turning the corner. They lost Christian McCaffrey, their weapon. Yes, they had a better run attack. Yes, PJ Walker actually looked functional. He actually the highest graded quarterback at PFF this week, as crazy as that is. But at the end of the day, you can only move them so far. I still think there was a rough season and a huge rebuild ahead of them. Let's go ahead. Ty, you're up next. Who would you like to put at number 29 in our power rankings draft?
The Denver Russell Wilsons. They are. I thought about him at 32 because it's been that disastrous, and I did not see it coming. I thought Nathaniel Hackett, Russell Wilson was a match made in heaven. You have two. Say what you want about Russell Wilson's personality and Nathaniel Hackett's positivity. They eat, sleep, breathe the sport. So they put their heads together, figure out something innovative, something with some pop. They've got a good defense, right? Even the last 2 years with Vic Fangio, it was a top 10 defense, but the offense has been such an unmitigated disaster of a train wreck that I don't even know where they go from here. It's obviously Russell Wilson and his contract. He ain't going anywhere. So it becomes that, Titanic ship sinking and people just trying to look out for themselves. And I wonder, if Hackett will be one and done. It's looking like it right now.
Well, here's a question. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Ty. If he loses again, if he loses in London to the Jaguars, is he done now? Or do you think that this new ownership in Denver will wait to the end of the season? Or do we not even know? We don't know what the Waltons are going to do.
That's the thing. I don't know much about the Waltons. And I don't really know what, business-wise, are they quick on the trigger? We've seen owners who aren't afraid, especially if they just unloaded this much money for the franchise. And if they don't want to be this laughing stock that the Denver Broncos are, who knows what they do? But they'd probably love to dump Russell Wilson at some point if they can. But I don't know where that out is. It's not after this season, so you're basically going to bring in somebody who will appease Russ and is an ally of Russ, and he already has that kind of personnel control. We can assume behind the scenes. It's going to get worse before it gets better in Denver.
Yeah, completely agree. From so much hype preseason to absolute mess right now. I also had them at 29. Let's move on to number 28. Jimmy, you're up next.
Yeah, so the Broncos are the lowest points per game this season. The second lowest is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's where I have them at 28. With a rookie QB, you can kind of see this coming, especially when a lot of the skill players on the offensive side of the ball have been disappointing, especially Najee Harris. I'm sure a lot of fantasy owners can agree with me there. Every week you're like, hey, maybe it's this week. You got to project him high, and then he just doesn't put up the points that you want him to. And as a whole, the rookie QB situation almost never really works out for the first season. So it's just like trial by fire situation right now with Trubisky coming in and out and all that. And then TJ Watt is designated to return from IR.
That's huge.
He has a few weeks to come back. Their defense did shut out the Dolphins in the second half this week, which is a bright side for this team. And then TJ Watt coming back. So we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the season.
Steelers right now, without TJ Watt, the lowest QB pressure rate in the entire NFL. You cannot sustain or be in games without QB pressure rates in 2022. I also had the Steelers at 28. Guys, we're very much aligned here. I'm waiting for us to mix it up a little bit. So far, the line. This is reading. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Great minds, right? All right, so I'm going to move on to number 27. I'm going to go ahead and put the New Orleans Saints. This is a team that certainly has the talent. I questioned Dennis Allen as a coach going into the season. I thought there would be a big drop-off without Sean Payton. A lot of people in the media were like, no, the Saints, the playoffs. That actually convinced me a little bit. I think I ended up putting them in the playoffs in my last season preview. But this is a team with a lot of holes. The defense is not as good as it has been in years past. It doesn't matter if it's Andy Dalton in or Jameis Winston. They're both going to throw interceptions at this point. Dalton has always been seen as the more kind of controlled quarterback. Dennis Allen has said that Dalton is going to start. It's not health-related. Jameis is QB2 right now. Yeah, I mean, the good news for the Saints is that the NFC South is wide open. So even though you're at 27, you're still only one game out of first. Ty, number 26. Who do you want to put here?
I mean, I know that everybody's all excited in Chicago out of that Monday Night Football win, but I'm putting the Bears at 26.
Ooh, wow.
I mean, they might even be worse than that. I don't know if this is a sustainable passing game. I mean, Justin Fields, he can be fun to watch. I mean, he makes at least 3 or 4 plays a game that really kind of make your jaw drop that not a lot of quarterbacks can make. But at some point over a 17-game season, you need a rhythmic passing game. You need to take your layups, as Kurt Warner loves to say, and just kind of work down the field on these 10 to 15 play drives against these 2 deep shells. And I don't know if he has it. Who knows if he'll ever have it. Yeah, I can't really get on board with the Bears, and Robert Quinn's traded now, so yeah,
I'm with you. I think
might even be lower than 26.
We need to see it consistently. One good game, and granted, it was a great game. They had extra time to prepare. They beat the Belichick defense up and down the field, but we haven't seen enough of that from the Bears offense. I'd like to see it multiple weeks. Jimmy, who do you have at 25?
I have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming off a loss against the Giants. 4 straight losses now after a couple impressive wins against the Chargers and Colts.
I think they made it to our top 10 early in the year, right?
Yeah,
Didn't we get them at 9 or 10?
That's the beauty of power rankings. I mean, it changes every week, and you kind of just have to go with the flow and kind of predict where teams might end up, but it's never perfect. But as a whole, they haven't been getting a lot of takeaways or pressure so far this season. ETN's been playing really well, and now that's his backfield, so I'm excited to see what that turns out. Yeah, but Lawrence basically has to play very well for them to get wins, I feel like. And then after a couple of those wins, he was getting a lot of turnovers and such. And I think they'll be down here until they start winning some games.
I was ready to believe in Jacksonville after week 3, sitting at 2-1, beating the Colts, crushing the Chargers. But man, what a turnaround it has been. All right, let's move on to number 24. I'm going to put the Cleveland Browns. Another one of those teams that was at 2-1 at one point, now at 2-5. We thought Jacoby Brissett could steer the ship in the interim until they get their new quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and that hasn't happened. They seem to have gone away from the running game, which is crazy because Nick Chubb might just be the best running back in the NFL. Not a lot to look forward to. They at least played the Ravens close, but everyone kind of plays the Ravens close. 2-5, got to put them at 24. Let's keep it rolling. Number 23, Ty, you are up.
Oh man. Do I want to go with this team right now?
I wonder if it's the team I'm thinking. I had them here. Let's see. 2 teams back to back that we wouldn't think would be down here.
If we're talking about how a football team is playing right now,
yep,
it's the Green Bay Packers.
I had them right above the other team I'm thinking.
It's just, and it pains me to say this because I penciled them in as the NFC champions this year. I saw a formula that could work with the defense, all of those first-round picks. You've got the best nose tackle in football in Kenny Clark. You've got one of the best playmaking linebackers in Devondre Campbell. Darnell Savage on the back end. Jair Alexander shutting down one side of the field. I thought they'd take a step into being an elite unit that could, win that 20-10 game, and that you lead into Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, and that the young receivers would eventually turn a corner. But I think what we didn't expect is an ordinary quarterback, a $150 million quarterback who is average to below average. And as we heard this week, deflecting the blame, not taking much accountability. This isn't exactly what the Packers signed up for when they gave him a seat at the table, but hey, you know what? They kind of made their bed. They have to sleep in it at this point. Rodgers held him hostage 2 years ago. We talked about it, Brian.
Yep.
And to convince him to play football then, they gave him that seat at the table. To convince him to play football this year, they made him the richest player in the game. Yet it was a failure on their part to know that, yes, he did win 2 MVPs, but Tom Brady is in a league of its own when it comes to extending your career. Every single Hall of Fame quarterback, when they get to 37, 38, 39, you lose a little off the fastball, a little on your athleticism. And when Devontae Adams isn't in the equation, this is what you see, a team that loses to Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, and Taylor Heineke. It could get ugly in Buffalo Sunday night.
Yeah, and those are actually 2 franchises that you're especially familiar with, having been a beat reporter for both the Packers and the Bills. Yeah, it's crazy to think. I think they're double-digit underdogs. Am I incorrect there? It's the line.
The
is
one I
somewhere in there.
was 10.
Wow, that is insane. But you know what? It's not crazy. I think I might take the Bills to cover that. I had the Packers right around here as well. I'm interested to see where this next team that I had around here too. Jimmy, you are up next. Who do you want to put at 22?
Yeah, the team you're probably thinking of in the Packers, I had a little bit higher just because I have some faith in them to kind of push back and beat some of the teams that you guys might have higher on the power rankings as a whole. But for my next pick, I have the Colts. I have them down here. I feel like I talk about them. I end up with this pick. They're my favorite team. And I mean, at this point, I'm debating that every single week. I go back and forth on it. But Sam Ellinger's going to be starting. I don't think that's going to make too much. I mean, he'll have some mobile.
Can't get much worse.
Yeah, it can't get much worse. Matt Ryan had some very questionable plays against the Titans that just got him benched. He has some sort of injury, but that's not really the reason that they're going a different direction. And they're not starting Nick Foles. They're starting Sam Ellinger, seeing what he has on the table. They have a pretty good defense. The defense was fun to watch against the Titans. I feel like if the quarterback and if the offense made some plays, they could have pulled out the win. But I feel like this team can lose to any team, and somehow they can win against any team. But now with Sam Ellinger, I'm not too sure on that. I feel like it's just going to go downhill.
Along with what Ty said for how a team is playing right now, I'm going to go ahead and put this team in there. I had this team below the Packers and the Colts, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team is broken. I'm sorry. Tom Brady, if you can score 3 points, and on the defensive side of the ball, this tough Todd Bowles run defense allow nearly 200 yards rushing from Dante Foreman and Chuba Hubbard with PJ Walker at quarterback, there's something fundamentally wrong with this Buccaneers team, even more than, in my opinion, than a degree that the Packers have. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Bucs at 21 right before the half so that no one can question my pick here. All right, here we go. So this obviously, if you are listening or watching, this episode is going to go a little bit more than 30 minutes. We have a special guest in Ty. We want to give enough time to talk about these teams, and we want to talk about Ty's book. So it's okay. We might go 40, 45 minutes. That's all right. We promise it'll be good content. Ty, first of all, I wanted to start off by saying, I love your writing. I love your long-form writing. There's a reason why I'm a subscriber to Go Long. So when I found out you were writing a book, I've known about this. I think you first told me about it a year ago. Like, I'm working on a book. I'm talking to tight ends. I thought it was an awesome idea. But I wanted to know, what was your inspiration or goal? Like, what did you say, okay, I want to write about tight ends. I just want the history of it. I want to learn about the evolution. Going in, what were you thinking? What was kind of your reasoning or your goal for writing this particular book?
I knew I wanted to write a book. I just wasn't really sure what it would be. I needed to be inspired by something, right? You don't want to just kind of tiptoe into a project like this when, if you're writing a book, you better be passionate about it. Like anything in life, you better be thinking about it every day and love what that topic is. Otherwise, it could be a miserable experience. So I knew I started at that point. It was time to kind of write a book about what I wasn't sure, a team, a player, a coach. Nothing was really kind of hit me and giving me that passion to dive into it head first. So I just was thinking, I love football. It's been in my life as far back as I can remember, playing at a young age, high school ball, 1 year college ball, watching it since I can remember, covering it basically my whole life, one way or another. And I tried to think, okay, what what is football? What is real football? Pure football, not the sanitized version that's getting thrown into our face with all the flags, all the fines, all the overcorrection that we see these last few years that makes us want to take the remote and chuck it through the TV if somebody sneezes on Tom Brady. And the more you think about it, it's the tight end. You have to do everything. You have to live in the trenches and roll up your sleeves and hit somebody. Yet you're not just this anonymous dude that nobody hears from for 3 hours. It's 3rd and 8. The game's on the line. Maybe the season's on the line. You're running up the seam. The ball's coming your direction. There's 80,000 fans screaming. There's millions of people watching at home. You have that element. There's an intelligence element where next to the quarterback, nobody needs to know more about the offense than the tight end. That's why they're all color commentators. I mean, they can explain the game in a digestible way. They're smart, unbelievably smart. Greg Olsen, Tony Gonzalez, all of these guys. But I think it's that mental toughness too, that all of these tight ends that I talked to, they went through something at some point of their life that forced them to just change their life, to look in the mirror and change their life for better. And I think that once I kind of dove into it and started talking to these tight ends and hung out with Mike Ditka down at his golf course, Tony Gonzalez in Austin, Texas, Jeremy Shockey at the bar in Miami Beach, right? If you're hanging out with Jeremy Shockey, you better have a drink in your hand. Gronk and Kittle and Ben Coates, Jackie Smith. It kind of took on a life of its own. It's a book that, honestly, it's way more than tight ends. It's even bigger than football. I really think that everyday Americans can relate to the tight end because, as Tony Gonzalez said, like a tight end, you have to do stuff that you just don't want to do in life. You know, you wake up, you go to work. Yeah, it's not all glitz and glam. I mean, you're going to that 9-on-7 inside blocking drill, run drill. You're not going off with the diva receivers, doing one-on-ones with the corners. You're going to collect some bruises. And in our everyday life, you wake up, you got to pay bills, right? You got to change diapers. You got to do that stuff that you don't necessarily want to do, that whether it's conscious or subconscious. I think we can kind of relate to the tight end, let alone the personalities that are through the roof. Kelsey, Kittle, Gronk. I mean, it's the most authentic, athlete in all of sports. And I got to say, guys, back to my point on it needing to be a passion and something that you love. I grew to really love this project more than I could have ever hoped for. It was so much fun. I didn't want it to end. I wanted to hang out with these tight ends for a decade if I could.
Yeah, I love the kind of mix of the position where it's a little bit of blue collar, like get in there and block and do your work. At the same time, it's flashy. You get to score touchdowns. It's like the mix of the grunt work of the offensive line with the flashiness of the wide receiver. It's fascinating position. And you said that you went to all these tight ends from the historical ones, Ditka, who essentially kind of created the position, to more recent ones. Did you have a favorite or one that maybe surprised you? Like you went in with a certain idea of what this conversation would be like and it ended up being completely different?
Honestly, Brian, it was almost every tight end that I felt that I went into this not wanting to just regurgitate the stories we've heard on documentaries and other long form stories. There's a lot out there on these guys. There's Football Life docs. There's 30 for
there's
30 books written, those, 30 for 30s. I wanted it to be fresh. I wanted it to be original. And I think each conversation that I had, the book is 15 chapters, 15 long form stories on basically the 15 men who saved the sport and tell us a lot about ourselves along the way. And I want to say every single one of them, holy cow, it was stunning. I'd say, to answer your question, if I was going to pick one, I mean, Jackie Smith and how that one singular moment in the Super Bowl affected him is right up there. Jeremy Shockey, just how throwing punches and starting fights and creating that swagger at the U, bringing it back, what he did at Miami, how he brought it to the NFL, I think is way more profound than anybody realizes. I mean, he inspired Rob Gronkowski here in Buffalo, New York, to live like there's no tomorrow, party like there's no tomorrow. And that impact is huge. I'll go with Dallas Clark, though. I didn't know much about Dallas Clark. I knew that he was working the slot, catching some key third downs from Peyton Manning. But his life, it's unbelievable. I think that chapter will probably stun some people. Dallas Clark and Jimmy Graham, where they both kind of endured some trauma. Clark, his mother dies in his arms right before his high school graduation. His life can go one of two directions. He can remember that juncture and thinking, he could blame God. He could blame everybody. He could go into the pits. Instead, he goes to Iowa and he lives a life that's more Rudy than Rudy Rudiger himself. Buried on the depth chart at linebacker, mowing the field at Kinnick Stadium, selling the campus newspaper, just pinching pennies, emotionally still trying to overcome the loss of mom. Eventually, Kirk Ferentz says, "No, you're a tight end." Convinces him to play tight end, and everything takes off. He goes to Indy and changes offensive football forever. I also talked to Peyton Manning for that chapter, so Peyton put that perspective really into context of what he meant to their offense. Where you're going no huddle. Right, their offense had arrived before Dallas Clark was drafted, but they were still missing something. Clark's presence at tight end allowed them to not substitute, right? Because he could stay in the slot, he could play in line, he could be wherever. And okay, you want to put a corner on him? Fine, he'll just block you 10 yards downfield and they'll run his direction. You put anybody else on him, he'll beat you from the slot all day. So there's that schematic element to it. And then Jimmy Graham, I mean, what can you say? Growing up as an orphan, basically, his mom didn't want him. All the men in his life basically just gave up on him, lives out of a group home, fearing for his life. Where he stayed at Kennedy Home was really meant for at-risk kids, not just orphans like Jimmy Graham. So kids who were 3 years older than him, 4 years older than him would just relentlessly beat the hell out of him. I mean, he had this scene in the back of a van where he could feel his face breaking. There were memories he didn't want to relive, honestly. They were too traumatic. And Jimmy admitted, look, if you're going to survive with a pack of savages, you have to become a savage. So he learned to fight back. So by the time he's this basketball player in the NFL and everybody thinks he's soft, he was way tougher than anybody could have ever imagined. And we have all kinds of stories from the Saints days. I mean, the practices were straight out of the U. He played with Shockey. Shockey kind of showed him the way. Hey, we're from the U. This is how we practice. Where he's getting into it with Greg Williams. He's taking the football and chucking it at Greg's head, and Greg's F-U-ing him back. They had that swagger there with those Saints teams as well. So it was a lot of fun. Honestly, Brian, we talked about it as I'm hanging out with these tight ends and hearing all these stories. I was just bursting with energy because I just could not wait for people to hear the stories that I was hearing. And now that the book's out and they're reading it and they're diving into it, it's just a pleasure that they can maybe learn something from one or two of these tight ends now.
Yeah, I'm about 33% done. I'm very much enjoying. I haven't got to the Dallas Clark chapter yet. Seriously excited. Right now, I'm more the historical ones. And I know this book got released. I'm going to ask you a quick question before we go to the second half and finish out this Power Rankings draft. Have you already thought about book 2? Do you have another idea, or are you just living in this release right now?
There's a couple ideas circulating in the back of the brain. They got to kind of make their way to the front, right? If you're going to be on a topic, for a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it takes, I want to make sure that I'm all in. I can't half-ass it. As Rex Ryan said, you can't be half pregnant. So hopefully something will hit. We'll make it happen. But it was a process and a project unlike anything I've kind of taken on in my life. So I really cannot thank everybody out there enough for buying the Blood and Guts, How Tight Ends Save Football. There's the hardcover, the Kindle, the audio book, all on Amazon, and of course Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, Indie Books, wherever you get your books, it will be there. So give it a shot. Hey, you know what the cool thing is too? You can jump around. Like if you want to go right to Shockey, Gronk, you can. Would still recommend starting at the start because everything kind of weaves together and there is a story arc to the book, but I think that's kind of a fun part of it as well. If you want to jump around, you absolutely can.
Yeah, if you love football, if you love just the grind of life, absolutely buy the Blood and Guts, How Tight Ends Save Football, and go check out Go Long. This is not the only thing Tyler's written. He's writing this kind of stuff all the time. GoLongTD.com. All right, that is the longest halftime we've had, but it was absolutely worth it with Tyler on it. Guys, are you ready to go and jump into the second half and keep this Power Rankings draft going for Week 8?
Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. So let's bring... there we go. Add it back. Okay. Anthony, get that timer rolling. We are definitely going to go past 15 minutes, so get an overtime timer prepared as well. On to number 20. Ty, you are up next. Who you want to put at number 20 in the Week 8 Power Rankings?
Man, how about... There we go. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals.
All right. Yep.
And it's tough. I mean, they are a middle of the pack team right now. I probably like Kyler Murray more than most. Like when all the stuff went down with the provision in his contract for him to do a little homework, part of me thought, well, he's just different, right? Like he operates off of feel. He sees the game, on his own kind of strange level where, he's going to run all over the place. He'll be a little spastic, but that's kind of what makes him special. My God, they need DeAndre Hopkins back. He is back now. Maybe that gives a little rhythm to the offense because to this point, it hasn't been pretty.
Even with them winning, there's that shot of him yelling at Cliff Kingsbury, yelling at his head coach when they're up 14-3. Like that's just 100% agree. DeAndre Hopkins back makes such a big boost. But at the same time, they lost Hollywood Brown the week before. They don't have much of a running game. Their defense has gotten better, but there's clearly a disconnect between head coach. I've never been a fan of Kingsbury's play calling. It's going to be tough. Curious to see where the Cardinals go from here, but I'm with you. I'm not sure how much higher they can go. Little dysfunctional. Jimmy, let's get into number 19.
All right, I have the Washington Commanders. I had them a little lower than this, but they are coming off a great win against the Packers. But as we talked about the Packers might not be as good as we thought. But the Commanders are coming off of a couple wins against the Bears and the Packers. They have some pieces. Heineke, he slings the ball all the time, and Brian Robinson, he's starting to get coming up and playing well. But I still see them as the lower of the pack team until they get more wins under their belt.
I had the Commanders at 18, and here's why. It's because of Heineke. This team is a little more fun. They're a little more spicy with Heineke at quarterback. I know he started bad, but he came back. He took, beat Rodgers, who we were talking about the Packers offense earlier. His connection with Terry McLaurin. This pass rush is actually one of the better ones in the NFL. They've had issues in the secondary. They're playing a little bit better. This Commanders team now has won a couple games in a row, having beaten the Bears in Thursday Night Football previously. They'll need to sling a couple more, but yeah, look at this. Washington surprising, moving up the power rankings chart. At number 8, I was ready to put the Patriots higher, but man, I could not have been more wrong in that Monday Night Football game. I thought, Bill Belichick tied with George Halas. You mentioned him in your book a lot, Halas, because, with the whole Ditka tie-ins. I thought, Belichick's going to come out. He's going to shut down that Bears running attack. It's going to be a blowout. And no. So I don't know if that says a little bit more. He won't name a starting quarterback. Like, is it Bailey Zappi? Is it Mac Jones? He's completely dodging the questions from the media. So, yeah.
No, not Belichick.
Not
That's
Belichick.
not the
Never.
Bill I know.
He's always so forthcoming. So yeah, I was ready to say, the whole AFC East is going to have a winning record, but no, the New England Patriots after week 7 are in dead last in the AFC East. Crazy to think. All right, let's go to number 17, Ty.
It's the Jets. I know they're 5-2.
Oh, we're going to get so much
Jets.
crap on Twitter for this.
Yeah, well, that's all right. That's all
why
right.
we do this. That's why I love it.
I don't know. It's just I can't get past the fact that they're hiding their quarterback, who was a second overall pick in his second season. And boy, you watch a Jets game and they just go out of their way to hide him. And he's fun. I've never seen a quarterback that's more fun to watch with a more boring stat line where he's just running all over the place and just zigging and zagging. And you don't know where the hell Zach Wilson's going to go next before he throws it into the dirt. But I don't know. I think Robert Saleh's done a hell of a job. I mean, it's incredible what he's getting out of that defense and Breece Hall. What a bummer that he's done. Gosh, he was really coming on. That speed, that's a big reason I'm a little quick on the trigger with the Jets as well. I think they're going to be a different team without him. He really gave them a home run hitter. So, I know you are what your record says you are, unless you're the Jets at 5-2 at this point of the 2022 season.
Well, and also kind of a little bit under the radar, they also lost Elijah Vera Tucker for the year. This is a guy who played 3 different positions, starting positions along the offensive line this year. A first-round pick out of USC 2 years ago, has just been such a stalwart. Played both tackle positions, played at guard. So the loss of him and Breece Hall in the same week. Yes, they're 5-2. I had them in my top 10, but I can't blame you for putting them here. I think it is a reflection. We'll probably see the Jets come down a little bit, maybe this week against the Patriots. So we're going to have the Jets at 17. Ty, you're up next. Who do you have at 16?
I think it's Jimmy, right?
Yep. Sure
Jimmy,
is.
Jimmy. That's right. I'm looking at Jimmy, and I said Ty.
Yeah, I mean, as to go off of the Jets real quick, they have a plus 54 point differential in the fourth quarter, but they have played against they played against Aaron Rodgers, but everybody else has been some backup QBs. The Steelers, the Dolphins with their backup with their QB carousel, and
Jacoby
then
Brissett and the
then-
Browns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then they played the Broncos with the backup QB as well. So just something to look out to. But if they can keep it up, then they'll keep moving up. So for my next pick, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. They had a pretty big win this past week, and Josh Jacobs, he's a phenomenal player, and I think he could cash in big this offseason when they didn't pick up his fifth-year option because of a new coaching staff and stuff. But I think they can roll off a few wins coming up. And I'm excited to see them get a few wins heading into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I had them at 15. I had them ahead of a lot of the teams that have 3 wins. I think that was this is a victory they can build off of. Jacobs has looked fantastic. Absolutely playing for his contract after they declined his 5th-year option. 3 touchdowns and 140 yards against the Texans to really close out that game. I'm going to keep it moving at number 15. I'm going to put the Atlanta Falcons. I had them at 17, but that's how these drafts go. I've said repeatedly, I'm a big fan of Arthur Smith and the offense he's running. However, this offense is not built to come from behind. They were absolutely trounced by the Bengals, and they still didn't pass the ball. Mariota only had 14 or 15 pass attempts, even as they were well behind throughout this game. They were without Casey Hayward for this game. They lost their star cornerback, A.J. Terrell, early in this game, and there was no chance they were going to be able to slow down any of the pass catchers and Joe Burrow for the Bengals. But once again, just like these other NFC South teams, it's wide open. They're technically tied at 3-4 in first place with the Bucs. Nearly beat the Bucs. We had that whole Grady Jarrett fake, roughing the passer thing, and so I think they're still in the mix of it. Right at 15, I think they'll be competitive for the rest of the year. 15 seems like a good spot for them. Number 14, Ty.
Alrighty, let's just scroll down. I got the team in my head, but I just want to confirm it. Yeah, I think it's the Los Angeles Chargers. A lot of hype, a lot of hope, yet a lot of mistakes out of the head coach with game management still. I love the aggression, but at some point, sometimes it's good to take a deep breath and maybe not get as crazy. And Justin Herbert, my God, there's some games he's throwing the ball 50 times for barely over 200 yards. They're one of those teams that just is struggling against these 2 deep shells, and he'll figure it out. He's unbelievably talented, but right now they just kind of seem like a middle of the pack team to me. I don't really view them as a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, they do have some injuries, but to me, it has to come back to coaching. This is a very talented roster, and the fact that the Chargers I had them at 13, so right in this kind of middle of the road, just were decisively beat by the Seahawks, who are starting, I think it's 6 rookies, and Geno Smith at quarterback. You've got a Ferrari in Justin Herbert, and you're driving him like an old Ford Pinto. Yeah. That is on coaching, whether it's Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, or Staley, the head coach. Something needs to change here. You've got way too much talent on both sides of the ball to be getting crushed by the Jaguars early in the season and then crushed by the Seahawks just now. So I agree with that pick there. Jimmy, let's hear it for number 13.
Yeah, I have the team that just beat them, the Seattle Seahawks. I think the story for their season so far has been their rookies. Kenneth Walker's playing really well. Kobe Bryant's playing well. Tariq Woolen's been playing amazingly. Their defense still lets up a lot of points though, but just off of that, their offense also scores a lot of points. And they had a pretty good win against the Chargers. And I think Kenneth Walker is only going to get better. And he'll be in the running for offensive rookie of the year with Breece Hall out now.
Here's the thing: the Seahawks defense has actually been playing much better these past couple weeks. That is something to keep in mind. The Seahawks, first place by themselves in the NFC West. Who saw that coming? They were number 32 in my power rankings in June. So that's a testament to. We talk about coaching. That's a give Pete Carroll some credit there, and John Schneider for this draft for getting these rookies that are not only able to contribute but play very, very well right off the bat. Kenneth Walker is obviously leading that rookie class. Be interested to see how they do going forward and if they can actually compete for a playoff spot. As crazy as that is, let's stick in the NFC West at number 12. I'm going to put the Rams. They benefited from playing
I was thinking them too.
Yeah, they benefited from playing Carolina before the bye. right off of Matt Rule getting fired. There was a lot of turmoil there. Stafford still managed to throw a pick six, and they were behind in that game even, but they came away with the victory. They got the bye. Huge test this week against a Niners team that beat them decisively earlier in the year. They've got the Cam Akers drama. Allen Robinson hasn't been what they thought he could be. This offensive line has actually been one of the worst in the NFL, and their defense has not been killer. They've still got Ramsey, they've still got Aaron Donald, but it hasn't been enough. They'll get a chance to right the ship, especially if they can beat San Francisco this weekend. But I actually had the Rams at 16. The draft has forced me to put them at 12. I had them even lower than that. Ty, why don't you give us number 11?
All right, number 11. Let's see. I think it's I'll go with Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I mean, look, 11, there's nothing wrong with 11. There's nothing wrong with 11.
It's just outside of the top 10.
A fine spot for Dallas. So, yeah, I'm not going to poo-poo on them. I think that Mike McCarthy did a good job of keeping the team together without Dak Prescott. I honestly thought they might just go into the tank and be a bad football team that would become sellers by this point. Cooper Rush kept him in it, and they're at the cusp. I feel like at the end of the day, they're just going to let everybody down. And that's in the back of my head. At some point, the Dallas Cowboys are going to disappoint everybody. Yep, that's it.
That's kind of their MO. I could absolutely see them happening. Even this game, as well as their defense has been playing, Dak didn't look amazing. The two games we've seen Dak Prescott this year, week 1 against the Bucs and this past week against the Lions, meh. Cooper Rush has almost run that offense better for most of the part. So I did have them higher. I had them at 6, but I could see why you would put them at 11 there. Jimmy, why don't you start us off with the top 10 at number 10?
All right. I had the Miami Dolphins. I had them down at 13. But I think 10's a good enough spot for him as well. It was nice to see Tua. Yeah, it was nice to see Tua come back. They beat the Steelers, who were coming off a big win. But I mean, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they'll keep playing well throughout, no matter who the quarterback is. And I think Tua, once he gets back in his groove and doesn't headbutt players too often, maybe plays a little more safer.
Please don't lower your shoulder anymore to it. Just don't. I had a heart attack twice in that game when he did that.
Yeah, especially the first game back. I mean, obviously it's still football, so that's going to happen, and injuries are going to happen. But maybe play a little safer. But as a whole, I think this is still a good football team, and they can be contenders throughout the rest of the season.
We do get Anthony's Detroit Lions this weekend, so hopefully the offense can really take off and the Dolphins can move to 5-3. I had the Dolphins at 10 on my personal rankings, so happy to see them end up here. I'm going to put a team that I did have a little bit lower, but once again, that's how the draft falls. I'm going to put the 49ers at 9. Yes, I know they played the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the NFL. But they've lost 2 in a row. They've got injury issues. I really like the Christian McCaffrey signing. I think we're really going to see what he can bring to that Niners offense this week against the Rams. I don't think they're a top 10 team the way they're playing now with Jimmy Garoppolo, especially he threw a crucial interception in the end zone when they were still competitive with KC. But as the draft lays out, I have to put them at 9 so they get to get in our top 10. Why don't you take us to number 8, Ty?
And I apologize for the crying kids in the background. So you got a little ambiance. Yes.
They don't like our rankings. They disagree with where we're putting certain teams.
Let's take another look here. How about I'll go with the Tennessee Titans. Like the Titans, like Mike Vrabel, like John Robinson. It's this is what they do every year. They get the most out of their roster, and right when everybody's writing their obituaries, here they are, atop the division once again. They'll be there at the end of the season. They'll be in the playoffs. Is it going to be any different than the past playoff disappointments with Ryan Tannehill being Ryan Tannehill? I don't know, but I think that's a conversation for another day. At this point, you got to give them credit.
Yeah, this is yet another example of coaching matters. They've now rolled off 4 straight victories. They are firmly in control of the AFC South. That gong is the end of the game, but we're going to overtime because we've got 7 more spots. Anthony, why don't you put 5 minutes back on the timer, and we'll get these 7 done in those 5 minutes. But yeah, I agree with you. I had the Titans at 9, so right around here. Once again, the team that on paper doesn't look amazing, but they just find a way to win. That's a reflection of Mike Vrabel, their head coach. Derrick Henry, this team lives and dies by how he performs, and he's running well. So as long as he's running well and they're controlling the South, this is a good spot for them. Jimmy, let's hear number 7.
Yeah, I had the Titans at 11. I think they'll make the playoffs, but they've been one and done the past couple times they made the playoffs. So I'm interested to see if they can make a run. But it seems like it's very similar to Titans teams we've seen in the past. But I have the Baltimore Ravens up here, and honestly, they'd be a lot higher if it wasn't for their fourth quarter deficits. The team to have, they've been outscored 46 points in the fourth quarter, which is not ideal in the NFL. But somehow they're still above 500. They just love playing close games, and I think that could come back to bite them. Obviously, it has in the past, but it was against some pretty good teams. But they got the win. They got the win this week, despite not a crazy offensive performance. They pulled out the win. So,
yeah, they almost didn't. They Justice Hill had a fumble. It looked like the Browns were going to beat the Ravens in the fourth quarter again, but they managed to hold on and pull it off, block that final field goal. Number 6, I'm going to put a team that I think is going to keep climbing, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of the reason I don't have them higher is simply because the teams ahead of them are just winning more games, but I think we're going to see that's going to change over the next few weeks. We saw the Cincinnati team that we saw towards the end of last season in the playoffs that got them to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow was on pace to set the single game passing record at one point. That's how good they look. Jamar Chase is back 2 weeks in a row, over 100 yards and 3 total touchdowns. I think Cincy will keep climbing. But for now, 6 seems like a good spot. All right, Ty, start
I
off
love the
top
Bengals.
5.
I think they could win it all. I'm right there with you. Joe Burrow, and he might be the MVP when this is all said and done. What he has with Jamar Chase is just special.
If he keeps playing like he did this week, absolutely. Let's hear number 5. We got just under 3 minutes left.
All right, number 5. Let's take a look. You know what? I got to go New York Giants. Love what Brian Daboll is doing. It's crazy that this is the team that was in reset, rebuild, 2023, 2024 mode. And here they are with one loss, comeback win after comeback win. It's all coaching, and it just goes to show that if you have the structure, if you have the right apparatus in place, you can go from the David Gettleman just utter disaster to contending. They're a legit contender with this team, which is just crazy to say out loud.
Yeah, Jimmy, you had a stat up today, I think, about the Giants and their start, correct?
Yeah, they're the first 6-1 or better team to win each game by one possession. So that's
crazy.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy, but that's props to their coaching and Daboll, changing the culture of the team, and hopefully for them they keep going that way. But I think they're a tough team to play.
It's hard to sustain that, but that just still it shows you this team believes and absolutely starts with the coach. Let's go to number 4, Jimmy.
Yeah, this team was on a bye this week. A lot of the teams up here were on a bye this week, but the Minnesota Vikings, the 5-1 Minnesota Vikings, they have Justin Jefferson. They have a great offense. O'Connell's been coaching them pretty well as a whole, and they've just been doing everything right so far this season.
This is a team that a lot of people have lower, and it's a team that the Vikings of the past would lose a lot of the games that they've been winning, and that, I think, is also a reflection of the coaching. And Kevin O'Connell might not be lighting up offenses like maybe people thought he would coming out of that McVay tree, but they're still finding ways to win, and that is something that's important. At number 3, I think this team is going to be in the AFC Championship game, but as it stands, there's still 2 teams ahead of them for various reasons. I'm going to go ahead and put the Kansas City Chiefs. They looked about as good as anybody has this week against the 49ers. The 49ers defense that had been one of the best in the NFL. Mahomes is firing on all cylinders. Marquez Valdez-Scantling getting involved. Juju Smith-Schuster getting involved. Kelsey's still amazing. Not many bad things to say right now. Let's go ahead and move to number 2, Ty. Because whoever you decide, by default, picks number 1 as well. So who do you want to put it to? The Buffalo Bills or the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles?
I think the Eagles are number 2. And I promise I'm not just pandering to Western New York here. Both teams, I think Philly, they're undefeated, so it might be hard to not have a number 1. I just feel like Buffalo is almost flawless at this point. Their missing piece was Von Miller, and it's clear that Von Miller has a lot of football to give, ending Kansas City's last 3 possessions. That was unbelievable. It could get ugly for the Packers at Highmark Stadium Sunday night.
And you can go 2 different ways, and Jimmy and I have discussed this. You can go the record, and that no one has beaten the Eagles. The Bills have lost 1 game. But you can also go the way that if the Eagles played the Bills right now, I think we would all agree we would be betting on the Bills to win. So I can see either argument. We have been putting the Eagles first, but hey, that's why we do it draft style. We're going to get a lot of crap on Twitter, which I'm welcoming. We'll get that. Shout out to our graphics guy, Goldex16. He makes the graphics for us this week. I think he said he's going to do a change icon too. Do we see where these teams moved week to week? Eager to see all the people who tell us how bad we are at this on Twitter. Tyler, thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining this crazy Power Rankings draft, and thank you for telling us all about your book. Once again, if you want to put it up in your camera for those that are watching on YouTube, The Blood and Guts, How Tight Ends Save Football. Not past tense. They are still saving football. The position is the reason football is staying, and as Ty says, will always stay that way. Make sure to buy it on Amazon or wherever you get your books. Thank you so much, Ty. Any last words before we sign off here?
Hey, man, it was a pleasure to see you again, Brian. Jimmy, great to meet you. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun, even for somebody who hates Power Rankings. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I see the fun in it. And I cannot thank everybody out there enough for adding the blood and guts to the library. I think you're really going to have a ton of fun hanging out right there with Ditka, Shockey, Gronk, Gonzalez. Like I said, it's a football book, but honestly, I think it's something bigger than football, and it will be a great time. So thanks so much. And also, I mean, you heard my son crying. So by buying a book, you make Sonny happy. He won't cry
anymore. That's right.
When you buy it. So there you go. There you have it.
Make Ty's son happy by his book. It's as simple as that. Ty, thanks again. We'll look forward to hopefully having you on again in the future. It's always a blast when we podcast together. Jimmy, any last words before we head into week 8?
Tyler, nice to talk to you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the shout out for Dallas Clark. I'm from the Indy area, and I don't think there's not a single person here that hates Dallas Clark. So I think anybody from here would love to read more about him. I mean, we still see number 44 jerseys everywhere. So that perked, when I heard that perked me up. I was like, I might need to check out that book. So, I mean, it's just little things like that. You got 15 different stories. That's awesome.
There you go. Just buy it for the Dallas Clark chapter.
Being. He really is. Hey, we have an excerpt up at golongtd.com on Dallas Clark. So if people out there want to get a feel, check that out at my site. And I think you'll love Blood and Guts. He's really the one that got the wheels turning on a lot of the different concepts in this book, no doubt.
Awesome.
Well, guys, I know that this went longer than 30 minutes, but I hope you will agree with me in that it was fully worth it. Thank you for listening and watching. Tomorrow, we've got our hour-long live viewer question episode that we do at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific with the Pro Football Demon. And Friday, as always, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, we have our game picks where we make all the picks for Week 8 against the spread. Make sure to check it out. And if you're listening or watching for the first time, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again, guys. This has been 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. We'll see you tomorrow. That's spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner.